This is Maxon here,
And this is Darryl.
and both Darryl and I are co-founders of Magenta.
Magenta Mobility is one of the most interesting companies in the electric vehicle space. They are doing everything to enable the transition from ICE engines to EVs without actually manufacturing EVs. Magenta started by building a proprietary EV charging technology that it started to deploy through partners, eventually scaling up to start offering a complete EV transportation service. In this episode of the Founder Thesis podcast, your host Akshay Dutt talks with Maxon and Darryl, founders of Magenta Mobility. Maxon and Darryl talk about their journey of building up Magenta from scratch with almost no external funding for the first few years and about staying true to their game plan to build an EV ecosystem platform. Magenta Mobility's most recent fundraise of a whopping $40 million is proof of the grandness of their vision and the quality of their execution. Stay tuned and subscribe to the Founder Thesis podcast on any audio streaming platform to learn about how to build companies that change the world.
One fine evening while I was happy and doing all good, I get a disruptive SMS. I call it disruptive because, multiple reasons. It was not WhatsApp because it's Dubai. WhatsApp was blocked. So it was an SMS from Maxon on his plans about Magenta. And calling was not so easy back then, while I could have done a telephonic call. But the trust I had on Maxon, next day I put down my papers. Next evening, 6 p.m., again, I texted him back saying, okay, I've put down my papers. See you next month. That is where Magenta kickstarted.
How did you two know each other?
Darryl and I were cousins before Magenta, and now businessmen who trust each other.
My answer typically is we used to be cousins, not anymore.
And what was the idea behind Magenta?
So this is where, if you were to call it a premonition that electric vehicles is going to be big, and that came on the back of auto experience plus electric experience. 20 years. And I saw the transition happening internationally. So the intention was, one, cleaning up my sins of setting up dirty engine plants, both in terms of the energy generation and also in the way the entire usage of them. All of it came together. And the idea was to leave behind a legacy or a planet which is a lot more cleaner than how we are made. And of all the parameters, the electric vehicle was just about coming through. So all of these things fell into place. So starting Magenta was not on the back of a business, but on the back of a principle. And Magenta, then one of the first things that we were trying to do is to find a name for ourselves. What do we want to call ourselves? Interesting conversation around there. So when we were finding a name, we realized that a lot of people were searching for a name and talking about green. What we studied, spectrum of light. And we soon realized that one, Magenta is a non-spectral color. It doesn't really exist in the spectrum of light. But it's a color which is the most complementary color to green. Unknown to many, green looks most beautiful on a magenta background and magenta looks most beautiful on a green background. If it in fact is, we are magenta, we help you go green. That's the science behind it also. And incidentally, when we started our business also, if you see the panel slide behind me, the Magenta is also, when we started off in the EV space, EV was there to come. So we started to get a hand, starting to understand how clean power generation happens in the solar space. So incidentally, Magenta also is a mix of 50% blue and 50% red. Red standing for the sun and blue standing for the solar panels to tap that energy.
Just to add and just to summarize, I think Magenta is all about clean energy, generation, dispensing, and managing. So generation is something Max has just told you, into the clean energy via the solar panels and multiple other modes of such renewable energy. Dispensing is via setting up charging stations, running an electric vehicle and the fleets for large e-com players and IT tech companies and all of those. And managing is something which is a software tech, which weaves these two, the generation and the dispensing part of it together. So technology is something that stitches them together.
Okay. I want to know the story of starting up. You must have initially quit your jobs with plan one, and that plan one would probably have met market conditions and you would have realized, no, we need to pivot, and then plan two, and then probably today you're on plan three or something like that. I want to hear that story. So let's start from there. Both of you quit your jobs, then what?
Actually, I don't know why you use the word pivot one, pivot two, and pivot three. That's exactly where we were. So we quit our jobs and we set Magenta together. Now, incidentally, for me, quitting was not very easy. I was having, personally, it was a jet set life. I was living out of airports, meeting the top launches, literally knowing which socket and which bathroom in which airport of the world. And the quality of life was amazing. Thankfully, it went very well. My team was there to support. Now, leaving all that and setting up Magenta was a huge unlearning experience. You got used to a certain lifestyle and suddenly you are now pure to proprietor. So when we started off, we thought, okay, listen, EV is something we are moving ahead with. But at that point in time, there was no business outcome on the EV space. So what we did is we said, we first need to understand and build our business. We wanted to have a revenue generating system. So we started up our rooftop solar space.
And residential or office spaces or factories or what?
Both factories and residential. In fact, again, we took a very technology view over there, our technical view. So India's tallest solar installation in a building has been done by us. So that's the decision of Magenta Power as in, and I'll call it a reverse pivot. We knew that we are going to electric vehicle, but we had to sustain and we need to churn revenue coming in. So that's what we started.
And this was like a subscription model. You buy power from us, like that power purchasing agreement with that complex, or was it a one-time installation cost?
It was an EPC kind of services where we did the entire design delivery, and it was not a subscription model. That's how we structured ourselves, and that actually allowed us to do brilliant work in our engineering. Our engineering was top notch, and that was still sustainable. We are more an engineering.
What kind of? Give me some examples of clients that you did the installation for.
Right now, there was one building in Mumbai which was right on the glide path at the Mumbai airport. It was in Powai, on the top of a Powai hill. This was a high wind velocity kind of an installation where most people gave up. They said this is the only smallest installation that we could do, and that just from magnitude purpose. Many of them said, okay, it will be a 10 kilowatt system. The client was very clear, we want the entire system to be community. So I think that and that we went there and we re-engineered the entire design and we set up a 75 kilowatt system with an option to add another 50 kilowatt system. Now, how that was done is change the problem statement. And we re-engineered the entire design. And till today, that's a beautiful system which works. And it is in a very high wind velocity. People are actually scared to go there at that level. But we have an entire top system working. That was one case.
And this was a residential complex.
Residential complexes. And we focus on residential complexes at that point in time because we knew that from a scale perspective, in 2018, we want to pivot to electric vehicles. But that allowed us to understand how generation can work. And at the same time, to sustain and create a team. So that's why I call it a reverse pivot, it was a reverse pivot to know till the time EV takes off, we know what we are doing.
How much did you earn from that? What was your annual revenue from these EPC contracts?
At that point in time, close to crore and a half on a regular something. Now, we also did installation on a building which fell under the Mumbai,
Heritage building.
These were heritage buildings.
So we set up on a heritage building as well. So these are all engineered solutions. So we used to take pride in the fact that we were not a traditional solar EPC company. We've also done installations at places where there was no electricity at all. And we did it out of a principle for an old age home. So these were some cases of the solar installation.
More than the installations we've done at the HPCL headquarters and a lot of such places. But the idea was we always follow the Pareto's principle. So it was 80% planning, 20% execution. With this planning, we've been able to do the project within 24 hours. So it was not a never-ending project with complications. All of those planning, execution, project, everything was done. So I remember one of the school at a very remote location. It was within 24 hours. The target was go there. It reached at the right time.
There was another installation right in the city center of Mumbai. And you cannot have trucks coming into the city center in Mumbai, but we had a mandate to install a project and it's very close to the DMC headquarters. I cannot take the name, but it's right there. If you went to look around, you will see Magenta on the top board. And this was quite a lot of coordinated and engineering. It was more engineering. So we did that and we did that while building the team together. And that is where come February of 2018, we were very clear. Now we have established, we understand how to run a business. And this is where we set up India's first solar-based EV charging station in early 2018. Now, why charging station? Is because we knew that the EV is going to take off. Electricity is going to be new oil. So if you're generating, that's going to be one challenge that India would need to solve. So we set up India's first solar-based EV charging station way back in 2018, not unknown to many. Of course, we were there in the news for that. And then we also set up India's first EV highway, which means the first charging station on a public highway was done in 2018. I think June 30, 2018 was.
And this was in coordination with the Transportation Ministry or something like that, the Ministry of Road.
Not at that time, because that time there was a lot of discussion, but there was no hand-holding from a ministry perspective, to be honest. But we were also trying to understand really how this is. Like, we had to take a case to the transport ministry rather than saying we are just doing it. But incidentally, at that point in time, while we set up these two things, we were invited by HPCL for their seed funding, literally an invitation, because we were not even part of the discussion there. People heard about us, that these guys are doing something very interesting in the EV space. And if I were to say the Prime Minister's office, why Invest India, we were invited by HPCL, and I remember Darryl and I going to the pitch for HPCL, and the last in that entire scheme of things. And at around late night by 10:30 was our pitch. First pitch literally we were doing to an investor, a possible investor. And this is where the trust factor comes in. When we just started off, I mean, everyone there had been trained through the day. They had been listening to 20 odd startups. All that they said is, listen, we start off with the introduction. I just started off, we said, listen, hold. Maxon, can you introduce your co-founder? And your co-founder, can you introduce Maxon?
Okay, they were also tired and they wanted to have some fun.
Right. Possibly. That one was incidentally worked amazing for us. And I was able to tell everything about Darryl, including his birthday, to the fact that, what are his preferences in color. And the same thing happened with him introducing me as if it was myself. By the end of that introduction, we were told, listen, stop, guys. I think the word was, what?
Rock stars.
The rock stars. That was it, right? We were told, okay, listen, I think we should not end this. Whatever you do, you're good. We've heard about you. So let's move ahead. So that was the HPCL startup for us. And we were seed funded by HPCL way back in 2018. And on the back of which we invested into developing technology. We developed an entire EV charging app. India's first EV charging app was developed by Magenta, which allowed people to look for the charging station, charge the station, do the charging, and also pay for it. All in 2018. Unknown to many, we also installed India's first EV billing meter. And at that time, the Honorable Prime Minister had just launched this and was pushing the agenda, and the Honorable Minister for Transport, he was talking about EVs. He had just started talking about it. They had come up with a policy about EV billing, but no one knew really what to do. So we worked with MSCDCL at that point and set up India's first EV billing meter. The first bill of EV billing under the supply was from Magenta.
So one question is, so in 18, your EPC business continued because that was bringing in your revenue, your basic sustenance was coming from that. But then you also started getting into EV charging infrastructure business.
So there was an overlap period of a couple of months, really speaking, because we knew exactly what we were doing. And we knew the solar business, if I were to call the EPC business. I don't want to call it solar EPC because that also continues in a different form and shape for us, not like solar. We built that, and I think by June, the entire transition had happened for us into the EV space.
Were you able to sustain yourself purely on the basis of EV charging infra? Because EPC is giving you significant cash flows, right? And I'm sure EV charging infra would not really be generating much cash flows.
Absolutely. In fact, even EV charging infra is not a cash flow business. It's more of an infra take long-term play. So yes, so that's the reason why we can do what we can do. By that time, we were also doing a lot of engineering and consulting services for people who wanted to get into the EV space. And that it was very clear that is where we need to be. And we will soon know, we will realize that we have always made revenue out of what we were learning and also doing for us. And this is what we were doing. And EPC was coming down by the end of 2018, 2019. This is how we... And come 2019 is where we started to focus on developing solutions and also selling those solutions, to be honest.
Solutions for what?
On EV charging. We had started designing chargers, the hardware and the software. We were designing the entire R&D. By that time, HPCL was with us. So we set up a full-fledged R&D arm for both hardware and software. And by that time, we had developed some very interesting products like street lamp integrated EV chargers. It was not a switch off and switch on. It was a steady transition that we put in place. And it worked very well for us. So we were doing very good engineering design, and that sustained us. And that is when COVID stopped.
One question here. This solution that you were providing would be to what kind of a company? Like say a logistics company which wants to use EV and want to set up their own EV charging infra. So you would provide them the solution on how to set up EV charging infra. Like
There were a lot of OEMs who were also working in the OE space, and they really want to understand what this space is about. That's one. So that was right. We set up the Mahindra Trio Zor Electric launch. Magenta was on stage, and we had provided the charging solution for them. The first one was in Bangalore. So one was the OEM play. Second one was also a lot of OEM auto ancillaries wanted to get into this space and try to understand. So we did a lot of design for them. So this is how we start off, built up, grew ourselves. And of course, at that time, also had other, Microsoft, for example, started to back us. We were part of the global Microsoft startup program, where they supported us on the software tech side. And during COVID, and this is an interesting piece, like everyone else, we had to see what best we can do while working from home. We can't be out there developing infrastructure which cannot be used. So because we were an R&D or an engineering company, we kind of split up our company and started to develop the product, both the hardware and the software, at our respective homes. We started doing it. But the delivery of services continued for us. Because instead of manufacturing, it was more of solutions, the R&D side of it. So through COVID, effectively we delivered solutions, made money literally, and also grew during COVID. This is when I started. Anything you need to add on the COVID side and how we sustained for the year and a half.
I want to know what kind of revenues were you getting from this solutioning piece where you were building solutions? Like how much would a deal with one client or one project, how much would that lead to?
Oh, we had deals. One deal by itself was close to around 90 odd lakhs. One deal on an average. So we were doing pretty decently on that.
Okay. So it more than made up for stopping the EPC business.
Oh yeah, and also it was a huge premium, right? At that time, no one actually knew. I mean, we have had instances where we've gotten meetings and we say we are EV solutions, and they say, what is an EV?
Yeah. Okay. And how much money did you get from HPCL?
We got close to 1 crore at that point in time. That was a startup fund, part of the punk, and with a lot.
They're like a seed round.
It was a seed round, and more by that time, HPCL was also getting into this playbook of EV or EV charging. This is where HPCL was very clear. Just because you are a startup, we are not going to fund you beyond what we have funded. You need to prove your merit. And so we started to win orders, and these were open orders, tendered orders. We won for 1,000 chargers from HPCL. So by that time, we were starting to chargers and also the software now. And that allowed us to dig in our names from the R&D that we had already developed in the COVID.
Okay. So this tender you won would be similar to an EPC contract. You would build and then hand over.
In fact, the entire product, the hardware product was developed by, the software product was developed by, the installer. This is at the EPC head, like I told you, right? That EPC arm helped us. We have, unknown to many, we have installed chargers all the way from Kashmir to Kanyakumari, right? There are close to 1,000 chargers already up. Unknown to many, we were India's highest in terms of megawatts. The maximum number of chargers was installed by Magenta, pure EVs. Now, we not only did this for ourselves, for our customers, we also did it for some competition. They're the first chargers, they didn't know how to install chargers. We were the ones who went and installed the chargers for it.
How do you define competition? Who is your competition?
Now, many of the charger manufacturers who used to sell their chargers, they were competition.
Do companies make chargers in India, or is it all imported from China?
I'll answer that. Unfortunately, what had happened is everyone was importing from China. Most of the chargers were imported and boxed here, if I were to say, or assembled here.
And one question: how big is a charger? Help me understand what is a charger first. Like, how big is it? Is it a wall socket in which you can plug in your car through a wire, or what is it like?
Now, before I forget, Magenta, all the chargers that the entire R&D has been done or manufactured in, it's totally been done in India. And that worked very well for us. So this was the principle that we had set out for ourselves, and HTC was it. Now, coming to what is a charger, there are basically two types of chargers. One is a DC charger, in which you take electricity and pass it to your vehicle, and the vehicle converts it from AC to DC and sends it to your batteries. So these are 3.3, which is your standard socket, then 7.5, then 22 kilowatts. These are the ranges. And then there is a DC charger, which is, people call it fast charger, but we also hold it at that, is the chargers in which energy is taken, converted into charger and dispensed into the vehicle. Now those are 50 kilowatt, 30 kilowatt, 50 kilowatt, 125 kilowatt and higher. So typically AC chargers are called as slow chargers and DC chargers are called as fast chargers, but that's how it is.
Because DC can handle higher capacity, like higher wattage.
Yeah. Essentially what is happening is the conversion is happening outside the vehicle. So you can have chargers which are the size of a person to do that conversion and dispense it into the vehicle.
Okay.
AC chargers are all about safety, monitoring, and taking the same AC current that is there coming to your home and dispensing it to the vehicle. And the vehicle has its own AC-DC converter. So we focused on the AC charger segment because that's where we thought and we knew, and which is correct also, is the largest amount of charging is going to happen using AC chargers. So we developed an amazing type of AC chargers. In fact, at this point, I think we were probably the largest selling in that space. So chargers which are AC chargers for your residential societies, for your petrol pumps, for your malls. And actually, this is where there is unlearning for everyone. Vehicles charging does not happen on DC charging. There's a lot of publicity about DC chargers on the highway. We installed 70% of the charging really happens at destination charging, which is at homes and offices. This charging happens on the highways. Right? Now, this is a very interesting fact that has to be understood. And if you were to break out the entire EV charging ecosystem, you need to know where the solution is. This is a transformative way we are thinking of. Instead of filling petrol and diesel, we go to a petrol pump to fill in diesel and petrol, right? Electricity has a fantastic thing. It comes to your house. So effectively, you don't take your vehicle to charge. You charge when your vehicle is parked. So you need to have multiple small dispensers across rather than one going to a charging. So you'll only go for charging when you are in a distress situation where your vehicle is not. So the moment you understand this, you'll understand where the business lies. So we have been supporting AC charging. At this time, probably we have chargers all across India, supplied and supported by us.
How big there is an AC charger? Like the size of a voltage stabilizer, the AC voltage stabilizer.
I think that's the right way to size of a voltage stabilizer, slightly bigger. One of the reasons why is, and this is where I want to differentiate between, we call them lemon chargers. So there are many chargers out in the market, or people are positioning them as chargers, are essentially 3-pin socket with an IoT device. Those are not chargers. Technically, they cannot qualify as chargers. And also the fact that these chargers are unsafe because these are just 3-pin sockets and you are just having a switching device. So if you were to ever take a Magenta charger, it has over voltage, under voltage, over current, under current, earthing protection. All of this active inside the chargers. So it's slightly a bigger version of a voltage stabilizer.
Because it is doing a lot of the things that a voltage stabilizer does anyway.
Oh, absolutely. Not only that, by the way, it is also sending information to the cloud about the availability of that charger. Every 15 seconds, the charger is telling us what is my state, whether I'm in use, I'm not in use, if there are earth fault, all that data is sent across every 15 seconds.
These are like SIM enabled. There's a SIM inside the charger, which
communication enabled. So it could be a SIM or a Wi-Fi, but all of that. Now we developed that and we realized there will be use cases for it. For example, we installed India's first community charger in Mumbai, in Good Day Chakrilia, right? Which I realized now if you put a charger, it needs to be used by the residential societies. What the ability to build the hardware and the software together and all of it done in-house allowed us to build use cases and solution for those use cases. So this is how we built our business on the back of EV solutions, charging solutions. So by that time, of course, we also raised a Series A funding.
How much did you raise?
We have raised close to 96 CR, and that was through Jito, Let's Venture, and of course, the famous billionaire philanthropist, Dr. Kiran Patel. And our entire Series A fundraise happened within 5 minutes, if I were to call it.
5 minutes. Wow. How is that?
That was an interesting conversation, and I think by that time we had set ourselves very right. We were doing the right things, and the market had understood about Magenta. So our first conversation, of course, was over a brunch table on a Sunday after morning, and I went for the pitch, and it was across a breakfast table, and within 5 minutes.
This was to Dr. Kiran Patel.
And I think, of course, he's a great man who goes with his views on founders. So within 5 minutes of the conversation, he said, listen, I don't want to even talk to you about you doing good. I know that you do it, right? But it's more of a trust-based system and how we'll move ahead. In fact, he laid a lot more on the table for us in terms of the money available to us than what we really wanted. Respectfully, I had to tell him, listen, we don't want that money. We really want to have this. and the offer was to invest in more. We just took part of it, and he respected us for that. So this is how the entire story went. 5-minute pitch, per se. It was a deck for 15 slides, but one slide and we were through.
And when was this?
This was late 2020, early 21.
Okay. And at this time, you were still a B2B company. Your business was to help other companies who want to set up charging infrastructure, be it in terms of end-to-end contract or just solutioning.
Yeah. So we've always focused on the B2B, to be honest. There were some B2C installations that we did. For example, the Bombay-Pune highway. By that time, we had also signed agreements with Fur hotels. Now, Fur hotels is 84 hotels across on the highways in India. So we did some investments into setting up public charging infrastructure. But that was very clearly to know the customer and what is a customer experience. Because we will put up great hardware and great software, which is technically right. But what a customer is going through when doing the charging process is what was important to us. So we put up charging infrastructure. Now there also we did a very interesting revenue sharing model and all those models.
The owner of the space, the premises would have a...
Yeah, the lab running authority, right? Now this helped us understand customer requirements. Of course, by that time, by 2018 itself, both Darryl and I were using electric vehicles. So we knew the customer experience as to do it. But we were also understanding what customers outside of the ecosystem were looking for. Very simple. No one would want to stand at an electric charging station and wait for it while I have nothing else to do and I have my family on with me. So we realized that you need to put it up at malls or places where people...
Where your car is parked anyway for a while.
Yeah. And while you can charge yourself with food while the vehicle is getting charged. But these are very unique models. So that is why we did not do random installations. We did some very simple installations and give some got some related insight. So much so that today our charging stations, wherever limited that we have, has one of probably the highest utilization rate. We have a waiting in India to have someone like 10 charging sessions on a charger, public charger, per day, not for free charging.
How much time does it take for an AC charger to charge a vehicle?
AC chargers typically takes 4 hours. DC chargers take 30 minutes to 45. So we were doing that, and this is where we had completed our funding round and we were building an ecosystem view.
And why did you need the funds? Because if you're in a B2B space, you don't necessarily need funds. Every project gives you money.
Correct. So, of course, one is the entire R&D spend. So there was a super focus on developing the right product, both in hardware and software. But this is where the understanding of the EV ecosystem was important and where exactly was a site. So I told you, right, we had to solve problems and make business out of it. First was charging is a problem. We solved that piece. But the biggest piece was yet to come. And this was all planned out, by the way. And that happened in early 21, which is our mobility piece, which is our mobility business.
Mobility business, okay.
Unknown to many, Magenta is always perceived as a charging company, right? Or a charging infrastructure company or a charging solutions company. But we had realized that charging is good. You always need to take an ecosystem view for this. You cannot operate in a very isolated space. And unless you do that, you will not be able to. So we had already planned this out, but we had planned this slightly later. We had planned that by end of 2021, we will get into the mobility space. But 2021, we were getting to a client and customers, and let's say we're talking about Amazon. Say, listen, we want to put up charging infrastructure for you. The response was, listen, I don't want you to be speaking to a charger manufacturer, charging infrastructure, and someone coming and providing like a mobility service. We're looking for a company which can provide this end-to-end solution.
So this would mean providing Amazon with electric vehicles and charging infrastructure for them to run their deliveries.
Perfect. This was part of our playbook. But that was the time, what Darryl and I were looking at each other and said, hey, listen, I mean, we are planning this for later and there's a customer waiting for us. The problem statement that a customer is not charging. The problem statement was the entire mobility. So we invested into developing the mobility space and now where we are. So our position in the market is to provide last mile electric logistics on the electric platform. Customers like Amazon, Flipkart, e-commerce is just one way. We have FMCGs, we have other. So to our position to them is we provide you mobility, which is a vehicle without drivers, whichever it is. The electric vehicle charging also, the software technology which allows you to also give you guarantees of the service of where the vehicle is, whether the driver is wearing a seatbelt, which headlight is on, not to control the driver, but effectively to find out how far can my vehicle go and hence where is the nearest charging station. Now, this is unknown to many. This is and I don't want to call it a pivot. This is an extension of, it was a playbook which we had set for us.
You obviously don't manufacture EVs, so you would probably have collaborated with the EV manufacturers and done some sort of curation and then told Amazon these are the best vehicles in the market and we will provide these. And the management is what, I mean, you would buy those vehicles and manage them basically. Was that what you did?
Exactly. So we had very clearly understood that we would not get into the production of vehicles. That's not it. But we have tied up with some interesting tie with OEMs like Mahindra Electric, Euler Motors, Piaggio, some data we'll talk about. But we worked with them. We built a technology there which sits inside that vehicle and is able to control the vehicle and also the charging. So that's what we did. And to the end customer, he did not have to talk to 3 people. He spoke to Magenta, brought all of them together.
And you could do two-wheeler, three-wheeler, four-wheeler, whatever form factor they needed, you could take care of it because you would be working with multiple vendors.
This is where one clear clarity, Darryl, we do not operate in the two-wheeler space, electric two-wheeler space. We are three-wheeler and above. There are reasons for it, of course, from a technical perspective and what is the business strategy. So we realize that we do not want to get into a playbook where it's a very super commoditized approach. There is no tech platform or tech layer. And there was another thing also, and that comes from our principles. Safety, quality, and ethics will not be negotiated at Magenta at all. These are non-negotiable. It's the first line on a...
And have you signed a deal with Amazon?
Darryl, over to you. Now you need to take over speaking about what we're doing in the mobility.
Amazon is just one of, we have such 28 other clients. But yes, to answer your question, we already have a signed agreement with Amazon and a couple of such other e-com players, food industry, FMCGs and FMCDs, multiple customers we're servicing. Actually.
Yeah, you're doing last mile, right? So for an like this would be like a D2C FMCG or like an FMCG which is sending products from a wholesaler to a retailer?
For a milk run, yes. From their
Okay.
distribution
D2C.
to the
Okay.
And just 2 weeks ago, we would have heard in the news, in Hyderabad, we did a launch along with Amazon.
These deals which you have with these D2C companies or with e-commerce companies, is it a supply vehicle and dashboards and intelligence around it, or is it also supply the driver? What is the deal? And is it on a per kilometer basis or per package dropped? Or I want to understand that a little bit.
Sure. While the models are just coming through, I don't want to say this is a final model that we have, but we have done on both models, with and without driver, if I were to say that. We have, and it's not one model. We have by clients, we are able to tweak it. And that tweaking is possible with a control because we have a tech layer. So, for example, if you want to say, Jason, I want to search in which my vehicle is available for 3 hours. For us, absolutely okay, because we are able to take that, we are able to track what is happening to the vehicle, etc., and then to another platform if required.
Okay. Milk delivery might be just in the morning hours, and then that vehicle can move to some other customer for the rest of the day.
Right. So optimize your asset, optimize your charging. We work with this kind.
So what's your revenue split now between the logistics business and the charging solution business?
I would put it at a 60-40. 60% is the mobility business. And it's an integrated mobility. When I say mobility comes with charging, is what I'm talking about to the rest of the party. But now, this is when our focus on charging. We have a super focus on fleet charging. And when I say fleet charging, that's where the industry has taken off because there the utilization is high. So the charging that focuses on fleet charging, which provides charging for Magenta vehicles plus our competitors, or we don't call them competition, we call them collaborators. And also for. So this is how we have structured ourselves. Currently, we are operating, across the city we have charging hubs. We are operating, we launched in Hyderabad. We are launching in Delhi and Mumbai very soon.
So companies like say Zip or Moving would be your customers for the charging infra, even though they are also last mile logistics, EV mobility, last mile logistics players. But the charging infra would be from you, or similar companies would be taking it from you.
Right. So we have a brilliant relationship with them as well. First thing, it is important to understand this market is yet to move. We're just not even tap 1% of it. And not everyone will solve all the problems. So we work as a collaborative with Magenta is a very open company. So we have certain very brilliant agreements with the likes of Moving, is where we use utilization of infrastructure. And that's how we are working together and growing together.
I'm assuming that the solutioning business would eventually be a very tiny percentage. It would essentially be like a last mile logistics provider, like an integrated last mile logistics provider in the long term, right? Like that would be the long term play.
What we see ourselves is purely, we may become an asset like aggregator or tech aggregator kind of model is what we think. That's the way for scale up.
Okay, something like what, say, a ship rocket does for traditional mobility, you could be a ship rocket for EV mobility.
Oh yes, could be. We have a charging platform, amazing charging platform with the entire R&D already sorted. We know exactly the tech rates. We've already put it up. And right now we have a tech layer also in place on the mobility side.
Wouldn't owning the full stack help you grow more like what, let's say, what Moving is doing, where they own the full stack? As in, they are like a complete outsourcing, one-stop outsourcing shop for a e-commerce or a D2C company that wants to shift to green logistics. So wouldn't that be like a better way to grow, where you can ensure quality, consistency, all of those things?
Sure. In fact, that is where we are right now. Right? The tech layer that we have is allowing us some amazing amount of controls. So we are there. Right? Now, what happens is, this is where I say that's a space that we think we would be. It's a full stack. For example, an Amazon or anyone else does not have to go anywhere. They just come to us and say, listen, we want to include charging, parking, tech, everything. But there's one small difference. The way we think this business will grow is we also have a lot of partner network who would want to be part of this ecosystem. But at this point in time, do not have 100% confidence of the electric brought on board. So how we look at it is, let's say 25% will be owned, operated, managed, and a 75% will be an aggregator model. So the percentages could be vary, but we believe that could be a sweet spot. And a sweet spot, both for us, Moving, and many others, is still to be found.
So this would be like, say, how delivery works with fleet operators. Like some of the trucks are their own, but a lot of trucks are outsourced third-party vendor fleet operators, which, I mean, they own the business from the client, but how they deliver, it could be using their own trucks or it could be using trucks from other fleet operators. So you would want fleet operators to be plugging in the requirements which you have beyond what you can do with your owned vehicles.
Absolutely. So I think this is where we need to take a, by the year view on, also because there's a product issue over there at this point in time. We don't have a product fitment across. So the product fitment has to fall in place. So you need to look at how you de-risk yourself both in terms of your asset base, product, technology base, etc. Right, on this platform. And that is how we think this is not built. For us to say, listen, we go and operate everything, we're not.
Okay, got it. But
if that was the case, we would have said, listen, the charging hub, we will not allow anyone to be there. That's not how we are playing. We say, listen, we have put up the infrastructure, it's available to you.
no, plus it's better monetization for that infra also, like when other people use.
Oh, absolutely. But principally where we come from, more than monetization, the way we principally think that how this business will grow is how you build the ecosystem and not try to say, I own the ecosystem. And this is exactly saying I'll use a vehicle with the charging protocol, which is only unique to me.
You believe in a more open source approach, basically.
Yeah.
Does the earning per vehicle differ with traditional vehicle and EV, or your profit, is that different? Let's say you have an X number of vehicles contract with Amazon. How much is your profit percentage in that? And you help me understand the economics of this mobility business.
At this point, for a customer, an electric vehicle cargo for last mile delivery is the TCO is 20% lesser.
TCO means total cost of ownership.
For us, TCO, of course, from a per delivery perspective, the cost for delivery on an electric vehicle today, as it stands today, is 15 to 20% lesser as against an ICE vehicle for the last mile delivery, which means.
And you get paid per delivery, or you get paid per kilometer, per vehicle? What is it like?
Like I said, there are multiple models, but I would say there are two models: the buy delivery and buy vehicle as well. These are the two different formats.
So buy vehicle is like a rental model where you're renting out a vehicle and they will.
Yeah, under minimum utilization, etc., kilometers that needs to be delivered. So these are the two models. The best part is we are able to manage the cost structures. The entire IP belongs to us, the infrastructure also, backend infrastructure, both the hardware and the software belongs to us. For example, unlike another operator who has to now buy a charger from somewhere else and who his uptime on the vehicle depends on his charger uptime or charge uptime, which belongs to the charger uptime, which belongs to all of this. For us, we've just integrated all the way up. Only my charger cost by itself is close to less than half of what it would be if you were to buy it from outside. And all of this R&D is in-house. There's an R&D, but the outcome cost is a lot less.
Okay. So what's the fleet size currently, Darryl?
So we are almost nearing 400, 200 in Bangalore. We've started operations in Hyderabad and Bombay, a couple of such ones. Next month, we'll also be launching big time in Delhi. While I'm ahead of schedule of announcing a launch, but yes, it's scheduled for next month.
What's your plan in terms of fleet size by end of the year? Like, what do you estimate? Like, how big will the fleet be?
A very realistic number, if you were to talk about, we are driving a internal mission called as Mission 2000. We're slightly over 2,000 vehicles to be deployed only in these 4 cities. So we've mobilized the team and the plans in order to achieve these numbers. Also working backward with the OEMs, the vehicle manufacturers, to make sure the vehicles are delivered, given the supply chain crunches and all of that.
And this is actually, you realize soon that we are one of those companies who give out realistic numbers. We could have just said we get to 10,000 or even for charging. That's not how we operate. This comes at the back of month-wise deployment by city, by client. And Darryl is running the 2020, the program.
Broadly speaking, how much do you make per vehicle in your fleet? Like your profit after removing the costs?
On a percentage point basis now, we are already gross profit positive. I'll put it at that. And on the gross profit is close to around 20% is an easy doable of this if your operations are right. If you were to do a single shift on an approximate, that's not the number we do much higher. But on a single shift, anywhere around 45,000 rupees is easily doable. But there's a upside.
45,000 per vehicle. And from this 45,000, you also pay the EMI. I'm assuming these vehicles would be financed.
Finance, some of them, finance, most of them are finance.
So this 45,000 is after removing the cost of financing, or?
No, before. This includes all of it.
Yeah. Okay.
How you get through the numbers.
Got it. Okay. Amazing. The way I look at it, it's just a capital deployment cycle for you now. The more capital you raise and buy vehicles, the faster your top line will grow. The only thing you need now is capital. You have the technology.
There are 2 constraints. One is to have the capital available. Second, make the vehicle available.
Okay. It's not like you place an order for 100 and you'll get them. You'll have to place much in advance. And
like I said, right, the product issues continue. So we need to we are waiting for, there is a brilliant OEM for doing great in this space.
How pivotal are drivers in the whole equation? How many of your vehicles are given out to clients with drivers? How do you source these drivers? How challenging is it to get good quality supply of drivers?
Sure. Irrespective of the percentage of how much of a driver plus vehicle, I think I call it this way in Magenta, we treat it this way. The drivers are who bring in the revenue. Maxon and Darryl, everyone is a support system. Right? And we accepted that way. We operate very differently. And this comes on the back of the fact that we invest amazing on the drivers, including the training programs. We had people from the RTO come and train our drivers, they got rewards. So driver is critical. The driver, how we treat them is more critical.
Do you take them on payroll, fixed salary, or is it again per delivery or per hour?
No, we have various constructs in that. And again, it's also geography dependent, it's land dependent. We don't have the solution on that. I don't want to call it. We know where it is, but there are multiple models. I think 3 different models that we have. But with preferences, this is where we think actually is. Our commitment is to the client, which is an Amazon or Flipkart. The next time you order it, you would want to have that. So we would prefer to have a control on that. A driver partner for us would be a long-term break for us. We do not operate with a gig worker kind of a mentality with the drivers. That's absolutely that's not a model we will ever build. We believe that, again, like I said, the principles is building an ecosystem and we'll have partners, but we will not believe that drivers are not disposable aspects of our business. They're the most critical aspects of us. And if we treat them accordingly, we build them accordingly, we train them accordingly. The salary model is very different for us.
How much does a driver earn with you on an average? Like someone full-time working?
On a vehicle, we put 22,000. On a vehicle, it's already there in Bangalore city-wise.
Okay, cool.
And there's always an upside for them.
Okay, if they deliver more packages or whatever is the...
Not only delivery, it's quality of service, quality of look, feel, all. Unfortunately, this is a very interesting piece. We got feedback from our drivers. The families want them to work with Magenta purely because the way we treat them. And there is an improvement in their lifestyle. Or there is an improvement in their lifestyle purely because of the way we have worked with them.
In what way? Like, how is it different?
The way we train them, the way we, of course, that's a key part of the way we run our models and our businesses. I'll give you a very straight answer to this. If you ever come to a charging hub where a driver would spend a lot of his time, we will get a washroom, security, all of it is it's by default for us.
What is the cost of ownership for a vehicle? Like a monthly cost of ownership? Like there'd be some finance costs and there'd be some maintenance costs.
Even around close to around 18 to 20,000 on that, depending upon the vehicle you are picking.
And how does it compare with the ICE vehicle?
ICE vehicle the electric three-wheeler has a larger capacity, and hence it is not competing in that space. It is actually competing up.
Competing with a four-wheeler. Okay.
So for all those companies who are out there who are running four-wheeler on their platform, and last mile logistics is very akin to three-wheeler. That's what we are.
But what is the cost of ownership differential between an ICE and...
So at 120 kilometers per day, we break even. The cost of ownership, TCO, the complete TCO of owning and operating vehicle, at 120 kilometers, we break even.
And I think the differentiation is an ecosystem. We build solutions. We're not stuck to one solution. We build the entire solution stack.
And that brings us to the end of this conversation. I want to ask you for a favor now. Did you like listening to this show? I'd love to hear your feedback about it. Do you have your own startup ideas? I'd love to hear them. Do you have questions for any of the guests that you heard about in this show? I'd love to get your questions and pass them on to the guests. Write to me at ad@thepodium.in. That's ad@thepodium.in.